So we would begin, if everyone is okay, with the first contribution, which is from Roxane Scavo. She's working in the DRUSEC project in Bordeaux, in France.
Hello. Hello, I'm Roxane Scavo, a sociological research engineer at the CNRS. I work on a DRUSEC project coordinated by Mélina Germes. Then this is my first scientific conference and my first public speech in English. I'm currently conducting a scientific analysis on a field studies that I led on festive practices in Bordeaux. I carried out a study on partygoers of all ages. All were heterosexual and cisgender, white, of French nationality and socially integrated. Social integration here means secure accommodation and a satisfactory social life, even if not all have jobs. Through snowball sampling, I met 20 people, aged 19 to 48, men and women, students, unemployed people and workers who party at the weekend. In my interview corpus, I noticed that the 30 to 40 years old were the biggest consumers of drugs. This applied to both men and women, even if men's drug consumption practices are more intense or abundant than those of women. The city is the playground for these partygoers. It belongs to them. However, my interviews with women raised the question. We all know that women are bombarded with instructions targeting their bodily autonomy with clothes, actions, and behaviors. And this that is also happens with the festive consumption. So I wondered, what impact does this have on women's relationship to urban spaces? As they fight for control of these two, to which special and social constraints are they subjected? As I'm still in the process of analyzing the results of my investigation, I can't yet give you a completed scientific analysis. I've chosen instead to tell you a story with textual and visual citations taken from interviews, mixing the voices of the people I met through a single central individual. The people I met were recruited through snowball sampling, which explains a certain homogeneity of social continuity. There is my story. This is the story of Mary and her friends. Mary is a 27-year-old woman living in Bordeaux. She's settled, she works, she's engaged in associations, she has plenty of hobbies and friends. She lives in a shared apartment in a very lively area of Bordeaux, popular with tourists. There are many small squares with pavement cafes, restaurants, concept stores, and organic groceries nearby. She agreed to describe me and sketch out some of her urban and festive experiences as a young woman. Exceptionally, I'm going to show you this individual map. We don't usually do this. Here, Mary, a pseudonym, has drawn a perfectly anonymized map, a beautiful map. The method we used, within the DRUSEC project, we have created and used a mental cartography method that we call emotional mapping, in order to understand how drug users' emotions are connected to specific contexts, practices, and settings, and allow them to draw the city they live in. The method involves a spectrum of diverse emotions. Its aim is to visualize the feelings of drug users in relation to drug practices and spaces. Its legend of chosen emotions takes the form of a color wheel. Each color in this wheel stands for an emotion, such as relaxation in green, joy in yellow, happiness in orange, worry and insecurity in blue, disgust in purple, and hostility in red. The colors are arranged on a continuous wheel to allow for shades of better and worse, as well as greater or lesser intensity. The chosen emotions address the broad spectrum of conflicting emotions. Using colors to represent feelings helps the interviewees to talk about experiences and ambivalent situations where pleasures and risk-taking cohabit. The mapping of individual emotions expresses a situated, partial and embodied experience of the city, which goes far beyond feelings of insecurity and fear discourses. During the interviews, I encourage the participants to engage in mapping, answering their questions, giving them reassurance, and also the creative space of a blank page with no toponyms or signs. There is no right or wrong way of mapping. Every person will appropriate the mapping process in a unique, valid, and meaningful way. So, here's Mary's festive life space, her emotional cartography. We see a lot of things here, lots of colors and doodles. Her festive life space and movements are concentrated within quite a small area of Bordeaux city center. In the middle of the map, she has drawn her home, an old Bordelais building in a road adjacent to a square which is very popular with Bordeaux young people. Obviously, scale and geography aren't respected here. That's what mental maps are about. Mary's sketch shows her own landmarks, which relate her own uses of the city. In this map, Mary recounts her daily life, the market, her friends, work, leisure, her commitments, parties and shopping. She's marked the map with the positive and negative emotions of her festive experiences. We can see a lot of yellow and orange. Yellow is the color of joy, orange that of happiness. She's a seasoned party girl who enjoys nightlife. She marks this pleasure on her most visited places. There are 5 of them. Saint-Michel, Saint-Pierre, Place Fernand-Lafargue, Place Camille-Julien, and Place du Parlement. These squares make up the historic center of Bordeaux. Mary goes out a lot. She uses and explores everything the city has to offer her in terms of festivities. She goes for drinks with her friends and colleagues, goes out dancing, meets new people. The smaller yellow and orange circles in the center of her map are the places that she visits regularly. Bars, nightclubs, places open after 2 a.m. She's used to these places and enjoys great night there. Mary is an independent young woman, emancipated and engaged. She's constantly seeking out bon vivre. That is fun, new encounters, and independence. She radiates girl power. She has a very rich social life, and her festive calendar is always full. Mary is a social drinker. She says that she never drinks to excess and that she knows how to stay in control. She consumes cannabis very rarely. She said, I quote, for me, partying is all about friends. It's all about enjoying the moment together with a drink, and after that, dancing, music. I might smoke, but only cigarettes, maybe cannabis. But I say that happens only twice a year. If the night is very good and there's an amazing atmosphere, I might drink 4 pints. Alcohol is really normalized. For me, more than 3 days without alcohol is rare. I never drink alone. It's always a social thing. Mary's friends consume more drugs than her. They're even bigger party animals too. Their names are Lucille, 42 years old, Louise, 38, Alison, 42, and Zoe, 35. These 30 and 40-somethings are bigger consumers than Mary's younger friend Elsa, 19 years old, and Cassandra, 27. Alcohol has a central place in everyone's consumption habits. Cannabis comes after, and more rarely, cocaine or MDMA. Lucille consumes, I quote, cannabis and MD. I think cannabis is more common in everyday life, and MD is only occasional, but it comes up a lot at parties. Often 1 hit or 2 is more than enough. If you go beyond 1 or 2 for cocaine or MD, that's already a lot for me. Lucille and Zoe explain that their consumption is reasonable this way. Zoe says, I quote, the times when I'm going to take quite a lot of drugs in town, I'll either be around a friend's place, at home, or at festival. When I'm out in the city, it's more alcohol or maybe small quantities of drugs. Let's say it's not a safe place. Mary's made friends, Charles, Eddie, Fabrice, and Pierre, for example, who are almost 40 years old, consume far more drugs during their festive outings. Cocaine, MDMA, LSD, cannabis, speed, sometimes even heroin. They do this every weekend, and sometimes during the week. They consume even more than Mary's made friends in the 20s. This is from Eddie, 39 years old. 2 grams per week, easily, pure cocaine, sometimes MDMA. Sebastian, 48, heroin, coke, without opiates and Subutex were for losers. And Charles, 35. We'd stuff our faces with coke, invite lots of people, so I'd always arrive home super stoned. They work, they have money, and are sometimes single and child-free. They live in the same city center neighborhoods. They frequent almost the same places as Mary, but they don't consume the same products at all. In this way, Mary is autonomous in her nightlife and not intimidated by the city at night. She has a very good sense of direction, knows which routes to take and places where she can party. She knows the city and her neighborhood. She's comfortable in her own skin. She enjoys getting ready and making herself pretty before going out. And it's all the easier because she goes out near her own home. I quote, I try to find high-catching, sexy, elegant clothes. I get ready, I put on makeup. I don't always wear makeup during the day, but in the evening, if I have a party, I put makeup on. In her interview and self-presentation, Mary says that she's autonomous, we saw that, and comfortable with herself, and that she experiences nightlife the way she wants, with pleasure. Simple, right? Actually, no, it's not that simple. On her emotion map, Mary drew 3 circles in blue, red, and purple. 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom. These colors represent worry, anger, and disgust. Mary may be emancipated, autonomous, and joyful. She still doesn't feel comfortable in these particular places. The first one, the first red and blue circles surround the Victoire neighborhood. The Place de la Victoire is a hub of student life with a lot of pubs, a public transport intersection. It's one of the nerve center of Bordeaux, where many different populations meet, punks with dogs, drug dealers, students, commuters, and so on. This area is more working class than Mary's neighborhood, less touristy and more central. It's also more masculine. I quote, Victoire, I put worry, both day and night. It's the kind of place I might get whistled at the street, in the street, sorry. The second circle concerns the area around the train station. I quote, the station area had a bad reputation. I never go there at night. I never go there anyway. The area around the station is further from the city center and very busy. There are sex shops, dealers, taxi, a transport interchange. This is the case of station neighborhoods in many big cities. Mary doesn't mention this area much because she doesn't go there. And another circle at the bottom left is marked in blue and purple. Mary remembers a bad experience she had on holiday in a rented apartment in a seaside resort near Bordeaux. This was the last time she was offered cocaine. I quote, another thing annoyed me when they offered me drugs. The word of drugs disgusts and worries me. While getting ready to go out, Mary plans and puts together her outfits, considering both the nature of the event and the route she has to take to get there. I quote, if I'm going to Place de la Victoire, I wouldn't walk the street around Victoire alone. If I was wearing a miniskirt, for instance, I wouldn't go to the Place de la Victoire at 2 o'clock in the morning, especially not in the bars. I don't want to go there. Have you seen the red marks? Red represents anger and rage, according to the key. Mary has used red marks to depict the nightclubs and late night bars she loves to visit and where she has so much fun. But for her, it's also places of confrontation with men. I quote, "There's places of seduction when you don't necessarily want to be seduced. I accept it, even if I don't want to." It's a sort of turning point, a half and half, a fine line. Then a line between partying and violence, which is part of Mary's day-to-day life. She isn't alone in fearing and dealing with sexist masculine regards and behavior. Like her friend Elsa, for example. Elsa is also an independent young woman. She likes partying and meeting people, but she's on constant alert with moving around the city. Elsa explains, I quote, "I try to dress in a way I describe as athletic in order to walk fast with sneakers which don't make any noise. Also, as it's night, I'm always wearing jackets and it's good if there's a hood so I can hide. My mother bought me a keyring which makes a noise. If you pull on it, it's like a siren. I haven't used it yet, but I have pepper spray and a big torch. I'm well equipped." She's developed strategies for all her journeys. She plans ahead. The specter of potential assault never leaves her. Other friends of all ages anticipate the risk of assault, but refuse to fear it. Addison says, "I'm not that much of a victim, but I know that those guys are out there and I just don't want to have to talk to them, so I make myself small." Louise agrees. She said, "I prefer to keep a low profile." And Lucy says, "I almost never wear high heels. I want to be able to run." At first glance, the city is theirs. They have fun there, enjoying the rich nightlife, consuming lots of alcohol, and sometimes taking cannabis or cocaine. The city belongs to them a little less as soon as they think about it, as soon as they have to go from A to B, when they have to change their clothes or means of transport to the places they visit. By taking a second look, we hear how they police and restrain themselves in their festive practices. This is what it's about: sexist male looks and actions, male occupation of space, and the behavior when faced with women's bodies. Girls may want to free themselves of this weight, but they can't prevent themselves from including it in their festive routines, in their movements. This is what allows me to affirm that this party preparation, this constant watching and vigilance, is an integrated and accepted mental burden. In every interview with a woman, the possibility of assault is a specter, a waiting shadow. So they equip themselves, arm themselves. They wear trainers, take their bikes, slip their keys between their fingers, touch the whistle hidden in the pocket, walk down well-lit streets, and more. Their relationship to the festive city is quite particular, marked by feelings of menace and unease, which varies by neighborhood, a mistrust of men. By contrast, Mary's male friends get ready to go out with lighter hearts. Arthur expresses this way: "Getting ready, I don't really bother. I don't think I've ever taken condoms or whatever on a night out because I never really thought about it. I've always counted on other people for that." These men dress as they like. They don't worry about people looking at their bodies. They take whatever route home they want. They don't need to take care. Mary's male friends don't have any apprehension about the city's nightlife. They even feel that they can consume more substances in greater quantities, more frequently, and in more places, in a street, in stairwells, or in a quiet, gloomy public squares. But when they're with Mary and her friends, they too plan their routes and pay attention. I quote, "Often when I go home, I pass by that spot, and it's true that if I'm with girls or my own female friends, if I see that one of them is wearing something short, we're going to avoid going that way. They understand why I change direction, like, oh yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing for me too. I wonder why it's embarrassing for me to pass by there with a girl who's all dressed up. But knowing that behavior, I don't want to provoke it," says Pierre. They want to make sure that the girls aren't whistled at, stared at, or accosted by other men. They know what will happen. And they also know how to protect their female friends. In so doing, they take another masculine role, that of the protector. But when they're alone or between themselves, they're not afraid of getting lost, of being too drunk or stoned to make it home. As Charles says, there's a whole web of little streets I've fallen asleep in stairwells or on doorsteps. The city really does belong to them, even during their craziest trips. In conclusion, this investigation flags up several key elements. The first one, flying in the face of received wisdom, which focalizes on the risk-taking behaviors associated with youth. My inquiry shows how certain profiles, not remotely on the margins of society, demonstrate not a reduction in risk-taking behavior as they age, the idea parroted by so much sociological work in France, but a continuation and intensification of consumption, hence the idea of a festive career. Experiencing festivity means experiencing the city. The older we get, the more we've tried all the city and its festivities, as to offer in terms of consumption, drunks, getting drunk and high. The 30-somethings in this study were aware of the risks taken. They weigh them and play with the limits. The second point, very clear gendered roles in this heterosexual environment. The urban and festive experience isn't the same for men and women. They don't have the same lightheartedness, and they definitely don't live in the same city. Women have the imperative to police not only their bodies and their consumption, but also their own urban space, their own occupation of that space and their own mobility. This is intended to free them from the risks posed by a masculinist norm, a huge constraint, even if it's accepted. On one hand, Charles, Pierre, Sébastien, and Fabrice present themselves as fearless, manly heroes, breaking the rules without fearing the consequences, the white and of French nationality, posing no limits in their exploration of the city, which is their playground. On the other hand, Marie, Louise, Lucille, Elsa are the real heroines here. These adult women stay alert, get ready, adapt their outfits and routes home. They go out together, they equip themselves, but they still go out and have fun. They've been doing this for a long time and will continue to do so for many years to come. They accept the presence of this specter and avoid the little red marks on the maps, as well as the constraint of policing their bodies and their consumption. They're also forced to police their own urban space, their own occupation of that space, and their own mobility in order to free themselves of the risks posed by a masculinist norm. In this way, the festive careers of socially integrated men and women in Bordeaux can be distinguished according to a set of parallel but very distinct trajectories, thereby showing the centrality of festive homosociality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roxane, for your intervention. Maybe you would like to unshare screen so it's easier for me to see everyone. Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions. If you have some questions to ask to Roxane, since we are a lot, I would ask you to write me a message, or anyone, a message, me or everyone, a short message in the discussion, so I can invite you to ask your question to Roxane.
I hope I was clear enough.
Yeah, I see lots of clapping hands and raised.
Thank you.
Yes, a question from Emily. Thank you, Roxane. I was just going to ask about age. Was there any judgment or stigma around older women drinking and clubbing?
I haven't seen that in my in the interviews. The age was between 19 and for women 19 and 42 years old. But no, they're very enjoying going everywhere, and they don't talk about that. This is the same. Actually, I said the bigger party animals. The older people than the younger, they know the city, they know where to go, and it's like a little village. Then they know where to go to avoid that, I guess. Yeah, they didn't talk about that. But actually, with the COVID stuff, they don't go in club and and pubs anymore. Soon, in 2 days, but yeah.
I see a raised hand, Jenny.
Yeah, I was interested in the matter of sexuality. If heterosexuality, homosexuality played a role in your interviews, because I was thinking a bit about these, yeah, all women dressing up for a party. That sounded to me very homogeneously. And I was thinking it also has to do a bit like of with the gender performance, maybe in general, not just for the parties.
Sorry, what do you mean? Can you repeat the question, please?
Sorry. Yeah, no, I was wondering if it played a role, if people were defining as heterosexual, for example, that maybe they had a different gender performance that made them more vulnerable, for example, for unwanted sexual attention from cis heterosexual men in the streets, or if that was part of what you found in your research.
They have a lot of strategies, even for the womanly performance. I mean, high heels, or they when they with a little dress and high heels, they take a Uber to go home, to go back, and I don't know. There's so many little strategies to avoid, because it is really avoiding the male in the street, in the corner of the street. Then yeah, they developed a lot of strategies, and but the thing is, every time in all the cases, they think about it anyway. There's no difference between the girl with in athletic outfits or the girl with high heels and stuff. They try to avoid, and they think about it all the time. Even if they defend themselves to think about it, they always have something. All of them told me they stepped the keys between their fingers at least one time. When, yeah, I think we can make the strategies, the old strategies they had to go back home, or when they think about party, or before party, during party, and after party, what they do to avoid that, to avoid the male look, or the possibility of the aggression all the time. But like said Louise or Alison, she said, I'm not much of a victim, but I keep a low profile anyway.
Thank you.